Revenge films.
My girlfriend Jill cheated on me 6 months ago. The other guy was not only my boss, but he was my best friend as well. His name was Jack. That was a double slap in the face. What hurt even more was that Jack, who I thought was my best friend, was talking badly about me the entire time behind my back. He didn't even consider us friends. I was destroyed from everything that happened, and Jack and Jill ganged up on me to put me down even further. He's worthless as a man.
He's ugly, poor, and a cheapskate.
I worked at the same company as Jack and Jill. We used to eat together all the time and helped each other out at work. Everyone at work knew how good friends Jack and I were, and my relationship with Jill. They pretty much dropped an atom bomb at work by spreading rumors that I was beating Jill, and that it was Jack who saved her from me. The rumors spread like wildfire, and I had no way to put out that fire on my own. Everyone at work treated me like a villain and Jack like a superhero. I lost all my friends and trust from my coworkers overnight. Of course, I had never laid a finger on Jill, but this narrative that they spread was too powerful for me to defeat, and I was completely isolated in my workspace. Jack didn't stop there, though. One day, when I looked at my pay slip, I noticed that my salary had been drastically reduced. When I looked further, I noticed that all of my overtime had been cut, and I wasn't getting paid for any of it. I brought this to Jack's attention. "Oh yeah, that was my decision. You're single, so you don't need that much money, do you?" What the hell? I was furious, but Jack didn't seem sorry at all. "I'm your boss. This is more than enough for what you bring to the table. Stop complaining." He just laughed it off like it was nothing. My entire world felt like it just crumbled to pieces. I even contemplated ending my life, but one day, the president of my company called me in. "One of our affiliates are looking for a capable worker. What do you think?" He offered to transfer me to an affiliated company, so I took the offer immediately and started working in a new office. I went through hell at my previous workplace, so the reset felt like heaven to me. After everything I went through with Jack and Jill, I was having serious trust issues, and I decided to focus on the one thing that wouldn't betray me: work. Work doesn't betray you, and the energy you invest is always returned in the shape of results. That's what I told myself at least, and just began hustling day and night. The president that transferred me to the company looked after me after I was transferred as well. I heard later that he felt bad for me because I was a diligent worker who was getting good results, but was being negatively affected by the bad rumors that were going around in the office. I didn't have a personal relationship with him, but he just felt that it was a waste for someone who was such a good worker to just be ruined like that. Thanks to Jack and Jill, I had a terrible aftertaste about my former job, but I was glad to hear afterwards that my results at work were respected by the president, and I was very thankful that he decided to act on it and transfer me over to a new environment. If he had never offered me that transfer, I think it would have been finished. So I put all of my focus on work. Soon enough, I was promoted, and my salary more than doubled. I was certified in many skills from before, and continued to acquire new skills after I transferred, which helped me to get chosen as a managerial position for a big project. But even as a manager, I still had trouble communicating with others and kept my distance. But this worked to my advantage. My workers appreciated this distance, and they felt comfortable working with me. There were no after-hour drinks that I had to participate in, and I always had their back at work. I was flattered and confused at the same time when I was told that they appreciated me as their boss. But thanks to everyone's good work, we were getting results, both individually and as a team. I did feel a bit awkward when the other departments asked me what my secret was, though. Around then, I received an offer from a familiar company. It was my former workplace, that company that was an affiliate which Jack and Jill both still worked at. When I saw the names of the people in charge, I remembered getting sick to my stomach. It was Jack and Jill. I still hadn't forgiven them for what had happened, and I was easily in a position of power to get them back. I could have rejected their plan and ruined their contract, no matter how good it was, but I quickly calmed myself down and refused to bring my personal feelings into work. I got a call from my former company, telling me that they were to come over and explain the plan to me. So I waited in the meeting room, the moment of truth. "What? What are you doing here?" Jack looked like a fish in the pond, begging for food as his mouth opened and closed with no words coming out.
Why are you here?
Jill just stared at me in awe. I just bowed down calmly. Nice to meet you. Please take a seat." Jack and Jill were even more shocked than I had expected, and when I handed them my new business card, they just froze in place. Things were a mess after that. They dropped their papers, and their explanations were barely comprehensible. I felt a little bit of weight get lifted off my chest seeing them like that. Jack never ended up getting a hold of himself, and after seeing how successful I had become, he seemed defeated and looked like he was searching for words, but instead just left with his head down. After Jack and Jill left, I called up my former company. "Those two that you sent over today were useless. They didn't make any sense at all. There's no way for us to be able to make a decision with that kind of explanation. So I'm putting it on hold. Please send over someone who can actually speak next time." And a few days later, I received a text message from Jill. She saw how successful and rich I had become and started texting me love letters.
You're the only one for me. Will you give me another chance?
She kept sending me messages even though I ignored them all, so I ended up blocking her. Then one day, she was waiting for me outside of my office building and started telling me to remember how much I used to love her. So I called security to take her away. As for me, there was a restaurant nearby that I always ate lunch at, and I started dating the girl that worked there, named Angela. I told her honestly about my past and how I was having trust issues after being betrayed by my ex-girlfriend and best friend. I didn't know what she would think, but she sympathized with me and supported me to overcome my trauma. When I told her that I was afraid to make friends, she told me that I shouldn't try too hard to, and that I should just wait for things to just take their natural course. Those words made me feel much lighter. And one day, I realized that I was really good friends with her best friend's husband. There are still times that I remember what those two did to me and feel anxiety. But just knowing that I have Angela now calms me down. And there was another reason that I felt better about everything. I ended up accepting the plan that Jack brought the other day. But it was a big project with a big profit margin for my former company. And Jack was demoted to a different branch as punishment for almost screwing it up. Jill was still being a liar at work and telling everyone that she was back together with me and that I had begged her to get back together, and she felt bad for me and was dating me again. However, Angela's friend's husband knew many people in my former company as well, and when he visited, he corrected the rumors and told them about me and Angela and how we were about to get married. He even showed them pictures of us as proof, and Jill was instantly exposed. I also brought it to the president's attention that my salary was purposely reduced and how I didn't receive pay for my over-hours, and he investigated for me. Upon thorough investigation, they uncovered that Jack and Jill's salaries were increased significantly. Upon exposing their injustices, they were both fired and are scheduled to be prosecuted soon. Back then, it felt like they had destroyed my life. But finally, I felt like I got closure. Angela asked me if she could tell her close friends my story about how I had lost trust in humanity, and I had said yes. So, everyone gave me a pat when they heard about what happened, which further helped me to let go of my vengeance, and all my negative emotions had been lifted. Currently, I spend my days talking to Angela about our wedding and barbecuing with our friends, and going on vacations. Back then, I really thought my life was over, and when I lost my place at work, I thought of ending it myself. But now that I have friends that I can laugh about it with, and a wonderful girlfriend, I have a new appreciation for life.
I'm a single mother working from home. I have a son in middle school and another in preschool. I have several certifications, so I make a decent living from home. So I was able to afford to send my eldest son to a private middle school that he wanted to attend. I make enough money, but people imagine a chaotic household is tight on money when they hear single mother. Maybe that misconception is part of the reason of what led to this terrible misunderstanding. One day, I was asked to stop by my younger son's preschool. I knew that my son wasn't a bully and that he had no problems at home, and I'd never been late to pay his tuition. So honestly, I had no idea why they wanted to see me. So I headed to the preschool a bit confused. When I got there, the principal said, "There were rumors that you make your money at home using your body." I was shocked beyond belief. I was also told that it wasn't just me who was called in that day. She took me to a big conference room, and the whole board of the PTA was sitting there waiting for me, and they all started attacking me. There, I explained to them what I did. I told them that there's this guy who comes over every other day who's a coworker, and there are many other men and women who visit my house for work. Well, how are we supposed to know that that's what's going on in there? They didn't even give me enough time to explain myself and started throwing random accusations at me. There's no way to make enough money from home to send your child to a private school. Yeah, if there is such a job, sign me up. Half of them didn't even care to hear me out. Like I said, single mothers are normally perceived to have little income. But I had worked my way here. I had worked hard to search for different ways to make enough money to raise 2 children, and I was a self-made woman. It didn't feel good to be criticized like this, but part of me knew that it was pointless to try to convince people who had already made up their minds. So I switched strategies. I didn't care whether they believed me or not, as much as where these rumors were coming from, and I didn't want my son to get bullied for it either. So I asked who had been spreading these rumors and found out that it was basically a few parents just passing the rumors around among themselves. The principal was furious when we got to the bottom of it. Those of you who are spreading false rumors around are a bad example to our students. If I ever find out that any of you are doing this ever again, your child will be expelled from the school. Even I was taken back at how mad she was. It's true that my son would be devastated if the other children started making fun of him for these false rumors at school. It would be unfair to him if anything happened were his friends to distance themselves from him. We found out that Felicity, the mother who was accusing me earlier, whose mother-in-law lived in the same apartment as me, was the one who started the rumors. My mother-in-law passed by your room the other day and said that she could hear you fooling around with a man all the way from the hallway. Hold on a second. That doesn't make sense. I live in the corner room on the top floor of the apartment. It's the farthest room from the elevator. The only people who would ever be in front of my room are people who are there to see me. There shouldn't be anyone just passing by. After voicing my concern, the principal proceeded to call Felicity's mother-in-law. She started going crazy and tried to stop her, but everyone held her back. I just stood by and watched everything go on. I could already tell from Felicity's behavior, but things revealed themselves as expected. I never said or heard anything like that. I have no reason to be on the top floor anyways. I've never even seen the top floor since I moved into that apartment. All eyes were on Felicity. She broke down crying. We all waited for an explanation, and somehow Felicity made it all my fault. It's all your fault, Rose! I was never very close with Felicity. We just exchanged greetings when we crossed paths occasionally. So this remark just confused me even more. One of the older mothers and the principal calmed her down and gave her some time to explain herself. They found out that Felicity had been randomly visiting her mother-in-law one day and fell in love with my coworker, who she claimed to be the guy I was selling my body to. Felicity was sure that that guy was my boyfriend, so she tried to get close to me so she could steal him from me. But apparently I had ignored her. So her next move was to get her daughter close to my eldest son because they were in the same grade. But my son had gone to a private middle school, so she couldn't approach me through him. And finally, she thought that if she could spread rumors that I was prostituting myself, he would hate me and leave me. How short-sighted and foolish of her. Looking back, I did recall a few instances that Felicity had come up to me and asked about my coworker, but I brushed her off and told her that we were just connected through work. I mean, that's all he really was. I never asked him about his personal life, so all I could do was give her vague answers to her questions. I guess Felicity took that as me ignoring her. Anyways, I decided to deal with this as a defamation case later on and ask the others why they believe such a blatant lie. Back when I used to be a part of the PTA, I invited the members over to discuss an upcoming event. And when they came, they noticed that there were all kinds of items from all around the world at my house. They thought it was weird that a single mother like me could buy such expensive items from all around the world. So that's what made the story believable. All of these judgmental people were making me go nuts. I mean, it wasn't ever a secret, but they didn't know that my grandmother was from the Middle East. And when she came to the States to get married, she had brought many things with her. And they were artifacts that were handed down to me. So naturally, they were from all over the world, but not bought from overseas, brought from overseas. Now the conversation set off another chain of events. Hey, Brittany, do you remember that cute statue you said you bought recently? I think I remember seeing that in Rose's house. Huh? I don't know what you're talking about. Speaking of which, Courtney, that cup at your house, isn't that Rose's? Wait, those those spoons that Deborah has? They all started incriminating each other. Hold on, so let me get this straight. Not only were all these people believing crazy rumors about me, but they were also stealing from me too? Those things that they stole were beautiful items, but they were odd numbers or random shapes, and some of the objects were broken and chipped in places. I was just randomly showcasing them on a cheap IKEA shelf that I bought, so I never even noticed that they were gone. They could have just asked and I would have given them up. I still had more like those in my closets. I was just kind of in awe, but the principal was furious. "All of you will be expelled." I remember her shouting something like that, but I was too tired, so I went home. Since that incident, people have been coming over with their husbands, father-in-laws, and grandparents to apologize.
I'm very sorry for what my wife did. This is some money to compensate for the stolen goods.
So many people were coming over like that daily, and I was getting really tired. I mean, it wasn't right for them to steal my things, but honestly, they were pretty much garbage to me, so I didn't care to receive any money for them. But even if I tried refusing the money, they wouldn't take no for an answer. For some weird reason, I felt guilty for accepting that money, and it tired me to refuse it every time. My kids were used to people coming in and out of the house, but it kind of scared them to see their friends' parents show up with their relatives to apologize to me one after another. But everything settled down after a couple of days. Everyone now understood what I actually did for a living, and the rumors stopped. I'm just glad that my son made it through without having to experience anything negative. And he still goes to that preschool as a happy student. Oh, what an exhausting incident.
One evening, I received a text from my mother-in-law, Rose. "I can't wait to see you next Wednesday." I was confused because I thought it was Thursday that we were supposed to meet. I thought about texting her back to double check, but I just figured that either I had made a mistake and didn't text her back. My mother-in-law was quite mean, so I was glad that I was able to get it over with earlier. So on Wednesday, I went to the grocery store to buy some food and took my son to see my mother-in-law. When I first visited, I was yelled at for ringing the doorbell. What kind of family rings the doorbell before coming in? Are you trying to say that we're strangers or something? And she complained about me to my husband. Your wife is trying to distance herself from me. Ever since then, I do say something when I enter, but basically, I just help myself in. As usual this time, I said hi as I swung open the door and stepped into the house. Standing right there in the front of the entrance was Rose and another elderly man. Well, they weren't just standing. They were hugging each other and making out. Rose? They seemed panicked as they tried to step away from each other, but the man's pants were fully unzipped, and Rose's sweater was rolled up above her bra. It was a scary thought to think that if I was any later, I may have run into my own mother-in-law fornicating. The unexpected scene caught me off guard, and I panicked too. I jumped back as I shut the door in front of me. I just left the bag of food that I had brought and grabbed my son and ran from the scene. After I got home, my phone was exploding with calls and text messages from Rose, but I ignored them all. She finally got impatient and showed up at my house and started yelling. "Jill, please open up. I can explain." She kept banging on the door, but I didn't want to see her, so I hid in the back room with my son until she gave up and left. That evening, I received a phone call from my father-in-law, Jordan.
I noticed there was a bag of groceries by the front door, but did you drop those off, Jill?
Yeah, that was me.
Why did you just leave them there? Was there no one home? Those fish were already rotting when I got home.
Well, Rose was home, but
Huh? Really? I wonder what happened.
I started feeling terrible after hearing his gentle and concerned voice, and I couldn't hide it from him anymore, so I came clean about everything I saw that day. That night, All hell broke loose at my in-laws' house. My husband, Jack, who came home late and tired from work, was summoned to the scene immediately. I was told to come too, but I told them that I was too tired and refused to go. I was just too shaken up. However, the next morning I received a text from Jack.
My mother just keeps yelling about how you're lying, and this discussion is going nowhere. Can you please join us so we can get to the bottom of this, Jill?
So, I pretty much had no choice but to join the discussion. I left my son with my sister, who lived nearby, and as I approached my in-laws' house, I could already hear them yelling at each other inside. I could see the neighbors looking out of their windows in curiosity, and I was hesitant to go inside. Jack noticed me through the window and came out to get me.
Just come inside.
He shielded me from the neighbors and brought me into the house.
Sorry to put you on the spot like this, but can you tell us everything you know, Jill?
As Jordan tried to ask me to speak, Rose jumped in and started yelling at me. I'm telling you, this girl is a liar. I've been so good to you, Jill. How could you make up such a story? It's unbelievable.
Shut your mouth. I'm talking to Jill right now.
Why won't you believe me? I'm telling you, this girl is a liar.
Enough, Mom. This is going nowhere.
They kept going at it for a while. I always knew you were a shady girl, but you're finally showing your true colors, aren't you, Jill? Ugh! You should have never married this girl, Jack. Get a divorce right now. Those words pushed me over the edge. I'd had enough. I pulled our phone out that I brought from the house out of my bag and plugged it into the wall. They were all staring at me, wondering what I was about to do. As they watched me, I played the answering machine. This is a misunderstanding, Jill. That man is, well...
Next message.
Hey, pick up! I know you're there. Let me explain!
Next message.
That's enough. You better not tell Jack or Jordan about what happened before you talk to me first. After a few of the messages had played, Rose picked up the phone and threw it against the wall and started going crazy.
Calm down.
Jordan held her down and made her sit.
Who's the other guy?
Jack and Jordan started questioning Rose, but she wasn't very cooperative. It doesn't matter. She didn't give up any information for a while. Finally, when it started getting dark out, Rose was mentally and physically exhausted. She started bawling.
It was Joe!
Her scream sounded like a sorry cry of defeat. Jack and Jordan seemed shocked by the unexpected name. Joe was one of Jordan's childhood buddies. Joe's wife was good friends with Rose, and their son had been friends with Jack since childhood as well. They lived just around the corner and were close family friends. Even I had been invited to spend time with Joe's son, Gary, and his wife. I'd never met Joe or his wife yet, so that was why I didn't notice who it was when I encountered them. Jordan was extremely shocked to hear his best friend's name come out of Rose's mouth. I was worried at how pale he looked after hearing the news. But they had been yelling at each other for 2 days straight now, and the extremity of the situation must have been overly exhausting. Jordan didn't have the strength to be angry anymore. He just slowly turned towards us and said,
It's late already. You guys should go home.
So, we left Jack's parents' house, both feeling very depressed about the reality of the situation.
Sorry you got caught up in all this.
Jack apologized to me, and we drove the rest of the way home in silence. By the way, Rose was 68 years old, about 4'7", and a little bit chubby. Jordan was 61, 7 years younger than Rose. He had just begun using up his leftover paid holidays and was planning on retiring afterwards. My heart ached to imagine how Jordan must feel right now. Jordan had been working as a teacher his entire life, and the house that they lived in was Rose's idea. You're going to get a bunch of retirement money, right? I'm sick of renting a place. Let's build a new house and move there. Jordan really didn't have any say in the decision, and they just bought the house recently. They planned to pay it off with Jordan's retirement bonus. It was Rose's decision to build the house near Joe's. Joe and his wife had just moved into town recently as well, to live together with Gary and his wife. Her reasoning was this: once you retire, you'll have a bunch of free time. So if we live near Joe and his family, you can hang out with him all you want, and I can spend time with his wife. So it'll be good for the both of us. Thinking back, it must have all been an excuse to have the affair. After the incident, Jordan and Rose got divorced, and Jack and I started living with Jordan in place of Rose. Joe didn't get a divorce because his wife refused to. But after paying alimony to Jordan, they had to leave Gary's house because it became too uncomfortable for them to be there. Rose had thought that she would be able to be with Joe if she got divorced, but things didn't go as planned for her. She wasn't able to receive any of Jordan's money and was thrown out, and she had been a housewife all her life.
Please forgive me. I'm going to starve to death.
Rose came to the house and begged for mercy many times, so Jordan called the police and had her taken away. I haven't heard from Rose since, but rumors are that she lives in a tiny, rundown apartment in poverty. A few years ago, my older brother's wife, Jill, stole our money that we were gifted when we got married. I got married to my husband, Jack, quite late in life, so we didn't have an elaborate wedding or a reception party. We just took wedding photos and kept it simple. After we moved into our new house and things started to settle down a bit, my relatives, who always took good care of me, gathered some cash and delivered it to my parents for me. I got a call from my mother one day saying, "I'd like to see your face, and I have a gift for you." So I brought Jack to stop by and discuss with my parents how we should thank everyone for the generous gift. The gift is by your grandparents' altar, so go get it after you say your prayers to him. So while my mother was preparing tea for us, I went to the altar with my husband and lit some incense at the altar. We looked for the envelope after that, but we couldn't find it. Mom, I couldn't find that envelope that you were talking about. What? No, that can't be. She helped us search for it, but we couldn't find it anywhere. Oh my, am I getting old? I'm so sure that I put it here, and I made sure it was there this morning. While we were searching, my father finished his yard work and came back inside.
What's wrong with you guys?
My mother explained to him what happened. Did you see it anywhere, honey? My father was in the yard all morning, so he had no idea what happened. As we were trying to figure out what could have happened, we heard a woman scream from the front of the house, and we ran over to see what it was. There, we encountered Jill, banging on her car door with a bag in her hand. The car she was banging on was their family car, and her 2-year-old son, Henry, had accidentally locked himself in. The windows were shut, and Henry was wailing inside and soaked in his own sweat. The car was parked in the street in a no parking zone, and it was around noon on a hot summer day.
Let's call AAA.
My husband called for help. However,
I'm sorry, sir. It'll take about an hour for someone to get there.
we couldn't wait an hour. Henry's life was in danger.
Let's call the police.
No, they'll fine me for parking in a no parking zone. Plus, I'll get in trouble if they find out that I left my son in the car. All of the neighbors will give me cold looks forever if that happens.
Jill fought to stop us from calling the police, and Jack argued back.
It's no time to be worried about those things.
No, please don't!
Jill started panicking and wailing in the middle of the street. It was just a matter of time until the car would get lethally hot inside. Every second that we wasted, we were putting Henry's life in danger. We couldn't just stand by and wait. The police may not even arrive right away, even if we called right now. Jack made a decision to break the window on the passenger side. It was the right call. My father brought a hammer from his workshop, and Jack hit the window as hard as he could. Finally, we were able to make an opening big enough to reach in and unlock the door and get Henry out. It was so hot and humid in the car, so we gave water to Henry, who was all worn out. and Jack and I drove him to a hospital nearby. Jill was kind of out of it, so we just left her with my parents. When we returned, Jill was sitting straight in front of my parents, who were scolding her. When my nephew tried to approach her, she just ignored him. My mother took Henry and brought him into another room to wait. I asked my father what was going on.
We found that envelope with your relative's money in Jill's bag. When we pressed her for the truth, she admitted that she stole it from the altar.
We all thought that we found her right after she arrived to stop by and say hi, and noticed that Henry locked himself in. But we were wrong. She had parked her car by the house in front of the bushes to hide her car and gotten out. At this point, Henry had already locked himself in, but she didn't notice yet. She proceeded to sneak inside through the back door that my parents kept unlocked and snuck into the altar and stole the envelope. But Jack and I were there with my parents, so she couldn't find an opening to escape. So she had been hiding in that room for over 30 minutes, and when she finally escaped, she realized that she locked her keys in the car. She couldn't open the door, and Henry was crying inside. She tried telling him how to unlock the door, but it was too difficult for a 2-year-old in panic mode. That's when we heard the commotion and encountered her. In other words, Henry had already been locked inside for over 30 minutes when we had found him. And that's why it was so hot in the car already when we pulled him out. Thank God we decided to smash the window and save him. While we were at the hospital with Henry, my parents saw through the half-transparent linen bag that Jill was carrying and noticed that the envelope was inside. My parents were furious, and they started interrogating her just as we got back. Jill finally admitted to everything.
We don't have enough money to pay for Henry's daycare next year, but the applications are due soon. So I just thought I'd borrow that money temporarily. I wasn't planning on stealing it. I mean, Jack and Rose don't have children and they both work, so they have plenty of money anyways, right? I didn't think it would be a problem if I paid them back afterwards. She didn't seem sorry at all. Still, you could have asked first. Jill's expression suddenly changed. He's your cute nephew, isn't he? What's the problem with helping so he can go to daycare, you cheapskate? You can't have children anyways, right, Rose? That money would be well spent if it went to Henry, don't you think? Oh, and by the way, you better pay for my window. I can't ride my car like that, you idiots.
Apparently, she was angry, but all of us were completely confused at her arguments. I mean, just stealing money that you need is confusing enough. My brother was summoned to the house after work. After hearing everything that happened from my parents, he turned to Jill in disbelief.
You did it again?
I'm sorry. I just had to get it back.
Ugh, I've had enough.
What the hell is going on? What is he talking about? By the way, the amount of money that they needed for Henry to apply for daycare was $800, including his school uniform and all the other fees included. You guys don't even have $800? I thought you guys had some savings. You said you were saving up to buy a house.
Well, Jill has been borrowing money behind my back.
He explained everything to us. Jill had used up all my brother's savings that he saved up while he was single, and all the money that he had saved up for a new house and for Henry's future, along with all the money invested in insurance to pay back all her own debts. After that, my brother started saving from scratch again, but Jill went into even more debt to try to get back all the money she lost, and spent all that money as well, to the point where they didn't even have enough money to pay Henry's $800 for daycare. So, what was all the money for? We were all so disappointed to hear that.
I can't do this anymore.
My brother divorced Jill, and she went back to live with her parents. And my brother brought his children and started living with my parents again. I heard later that Jill's parents paid off all her debts this time by selling their house. And no one has heard from them since.
As the cherry blossoms bloomed to celebrate the coming of spring, I was going to join my boyfriend of 3 years hand in marriage. Originally, we planned to get married and have the wedding next fall, but my fiance's grandparents were getting weak, so we decided to do it early while they were still healthy. I had 4 months left until the wedding, and I was out for some coffee with 3 of my friends. Good thing you've been growing your hair out. What does that mean? Oh, you look so much better in a wedding dress with longer hair. That's why a lot of brides grow out their hair before their wedding. My hair has always been long. I wasn't specifically growing it out for the wedding. I had naturally curly hair, and it was just easier to control for me when my hair is longer. And I could just tie it in a ponytail if I'm feeling lazy. And a little bit of drying time kept my hair under control this way. I had to cut it shorter when I was job hunting back in college, but I've been growing it out ever since. It took me 4 years to grow it this long. I was planning on cutting it a little shorter before the wedding, though. I didn't want to worry about my crazy hair that day, so I was just planning on using a wig. When I told my friends that, they tried to stop me.
No, your hair is so pretty. You should try setting your own hair instead of using a wig.
Yeah, plus with that length, you can try all kinds of hairstyles.
By all means, get a trim, but it took you so long to grow it out. Don't make it short again. They all gave me advice. I appreciated the input, and I was rethinking how I should proceed. When my friends suddenly looked in my direction like they saw a ghost or something, they all started screaming at the same time. Huh? What? That moment, I felt something cold brush the back of my neck and heard a snip right next to my ear. One friend had her hand over her mouth. Another friend was frozen in place with a glass of water in her hand. And my other friend had a freaked out look on her face.
Jill, run.
My friend managed to stutter those words as she reached out her shaking arm towards me. What's going on? It seemed like I was the only one that was confused, but I could tell by my friend's reaction that something terrifying was happening right behind my back. I slowly turned around in fear, and I saw a girl that I'd never seen before standing there with a pair of scissors in her hand. We met eyes, but her eyes looked like someone had drained her soul. She just stood there, staring at me, without even blinking. I got the chills. I looked down and saw a pile of hair on the ground. What is this? I brushed my hand against the back of my head and felt an unfamiliar rough prickly sensation on my hand. It seems that this girl had cut off a big chunk of hair off the back of my head. I sat there in shock for a moment as the girl's expression crumbled and she broke down in tears. I couldn't keep up with everything. I just stared at the pile of hair on the ground and thought, oh no, my hair is all over the ground of this coffee shop. I gotta clean it up. Wait, do I need to go get this fixed up like right now? I bet my hair looks crazy right now. All kinds of thoughts were racing through my mind, but at the same time, it felt like a heavy boulder was sitting on top of me. I wanted to, but I couldn't move. I was completely useless, so my friends got the girl for me. As she bawled, she took her beanie off and apologized. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She kept apologizing sincerely, and no one could say anything. I wasn't sure if it was some sort of illness she had, but she had multiple bald spots on her head. The owner of the coffee shop called the police for us, and they arrested the girl. As the victims, we also accompanied the police to the police station to file a report and leave our statements. Turns out, the girl was a student at a beauty college, and she had her tools in her bag that day. She was already an adult, but her parents were also called in because she was still a student. Her brother came instead of her parents, though. Upon observation, I had already figured that she was probably having problems at home. I was right. When she was still young, her parents had broken up. Her father went with her father as an heir to his company, and her mother begged to keep her, so she ended up staying with her mother. After that, her mother got remarried and divorced multiple times, and she had experienced domestic violence from many of those men. So, from a young age, she had alopecia due to all the stress that she experienced. Her mother wasn't the type of lady to treat her daughter's condition, which made it get even worse. On top of everything else, she was bullied in elementary school for her condition, and she was mentally a wreck. After graduating high school, she left her mother and was able to get into beauty school with her father's help. But one day, she lost all her confidence when she thought to herself that there was no way that someone with a patchy head like hers could become a successful beautician. Just when she was depressed about her situation, She ran into us at the coffee shop and overheard our conversation. It depressed her even more to think that she would never be able to get married. And she pulled her scissors out of her bag and was cutting my hair before she even realized it herself. Moments later, when she got a hold of herself, she realized the severity of what she had just done. So that's the gist of what happened. And after realizing that the girl who was crying in front of me with the patchy head was also a victim in life, I couldn't get myself to press charges. So I decided not to press charges. Her brother promised to find her an institution immediately. So I just had them cover the cost for the hair salon that I now had to visit.
That's all. How are we gonna fix you up in time for the wedding?
All my friends seemed more angry and concerned than I was. I went straight to a hair salon and cut my hair really short for the first time in my life. I now had matching hairstyles with my fiance. I liked my new look, but my fiance seemed shocked.
How long will it take to grow back?
He would always stroke my hair and ask me that. Who knows? It's been growing slower as I get older. And while it's short, I'll have to fix it up often to keep it under control. So I'm thinking like 10 years, give or take. Seeing how shocked my fiance looked after telling me that made me realize how much damage was actually done. A few days later, the girl's brother stopped by with a sorry gift and $10,000 in cash. It was respectable how he came to apologize to my fiance as well, and I could tell that he was sorry. So contrary to what everyone wanted me to do, I simply gave the cash back. You should use this for your sister. The brother looked shocked. Don't worry, my hair will grow back sooner or later. He cried as he deeply apologized many more times before leaving. About 1 year after the incident, the girl came by to pay me a visit. She had recovered after spending some time in a clinic and asked me to accept her compensation once she was graduated and got a job. I reminded her that it was unnecessary, but she insisted, so I made a proposal. Alright, well what about this then? You owe me a free haircut. My hair is pretty crazy, so you better be prepared.
Of course.
She accepted happily. And after that, she graduated, and after 3 years of training, opened up her own beauty salon. And as promised, I got my free haircut. I've been keeping my hair short ever since that incident, by the way.
I'm sorry for ruining your long hair.
She apologized as she cut my hair. But frankly, I would have never been able to experience short hair if it wasn't for that incident. So I just looked back on it as a good opportunity to experience something new. She looked relieved when I told her that. I love the way she fixed my hair. So ever since, I'm a regular at her hair salon.
At my university, there is a student parking lot and a faculty parking lot separated by majors. There was just one problem with the student parking lot. Our college had a big campus and many different buildings, but there was only one parking lot for students, so it wasn't unusual to have to walk over 10 minutes to get to your classes. Whenever I was late, I had to run to class. So on hot summer days, I would be sweating for the first half of the lecture. I would even go as far as to call it a sport. By the way, the faculty parking lot that was near each building was restricted to professors and senior students. Finally, this year, I became a senior and was free from that walk through hell. I was finally allowed to park in the faculty parking lot. I can still remember the first time using that parking lot and walking to class. It felt so great. But recently, some delinquent freshman who isn't even a mechanical engineering major started parking in our faculty parking lot. I'm a mechanical engineering major, by the way. He probably figured that the people who used that parking lot weren't people he knew, and saw that there were open spaces and just helped himself to a spot. I remember back when I was a freshman. The same thought crossed my mind, but I was afraid of the consequences and decided to wait until I was a senior to use my privileges. Right as I pulled in, the freshman with blonde hair and a flashy look pulled in at the same time. So I decided to give him a warning. You aren't allowed to park here. Huh? You're parked here? Are you a professor or something? Oh, me? No, I'm a senior in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. This parking lot is reserved for seniors and faculty members. But I've never seen you, so I'm assuming you're not a senior in my department. What grade are you? I'm a freshman. Okay then. Didn't they tell you about this at the orientation? Did you forget? Yeah, they told me. I remember. But my classes are so much closer from here. And besides, there's so many spots open here. What's the problem? I'm not causing anyone any trouble. Yeah, for now maybe. But the other seniors and faculty members will be here soon. And we need enough space for them too. So I understand how annoying it is, but please, Can you repark your car in the student parking lot like you're supposed to? You're so annoying. Oh, what was that? Nothing? Ugh, fine, I'll move, okay? Damn self-righteous seniors. What if I'm late because of you? He mumbled some complaints under his breath as he finally moved his car. Self-righteous? That's pretty annoying. But whatever. At least he moved his car. I'll just leave him alone for now. But he wasn't sorry at all. Quite the opposite, actually. He kept parking there every day as if he was provoking me. I warned him every time I caught him, but he never listened and kept parking there. I even made a sign that said, "Parking restricted to faculty members and fourth-year mechanical engineering majors." But my words fell on deaf ears. I was playing cat and mouse with the kid, and I had pretty much given up. There were times that he was parked there and all the spots were filled, and the seniors had to park all the way in the student parking lot. But one day, during one of my lectures, in a classroom on the first floor of the building, I looked out the window and saw him pulling into the parking lot again. My professor noticed as well.
That's odd. I don't recall seeing that young man in our department. I wonder why he's parking there. Does anyone know?
He had a confused look on his face, so I responded, "I've warned him many times, but he never listens. I even tried putting up a sign, but it didn't work at all."
I see. It seems like he just messed with the wrong major.
I could see my professor's eyes shining with excitement.
All right then, are you guys ready for some hands-on experience? Let's make sure he regrets what he did.
Our professor gave us the green light and we all got to work. Like I've mentioned many times, we are the Department of Mechanical Engineering. Many of us are even specifically trained in automobiles. We worked extremely efficiently and were finished in an hour. 3 hours later, the kid came back with his girlfriend and went pale when he saw what we had accomplished. "What? What the hell is this?" He was yelling at the top of his lungs.
Huh? What happened here?
His girlfriend was confused too. We were all watching from my professor's office on the third floor and laughing our asses off. The kid heard our laughter and looked up and noticed us. "Hey, this was you guys, wasn't it? Screw you!" He started yelling at us from down below. "I'm sorry, we have no idea what you're talking about. Is something wrong?" We just played dumb with him. "You know what I'm talking about! What the hell? I still haven't paid off my loan for this car yet! How do you plan to take responsibility for this?" He pointed to his car, which had become a pile of tires, bumpers, a license plate, lights, and so on. We pretty much took apart anything that could be unscrewed and completely dismantled the car. Yeah, it was us who did it. "Hey, don't just stand there! Come back here and fix this right now! I've got places to be after this! What the hell am I supposed to do with this?" He seemed furious. "Oh, sorry! We have some lectures to attend to! See ya! Oh yeah, by the way, that spot is faculty only, so could you move your car, please?" And I shut the window. "Ah! Screw you guys! I'm gonna come get you! You're all dead!" We saw him running towards the building with a furious look on his face. But our professor had been watching the entire thing also.
That sounded like a death threat. What shall we do?
I saw that shine in his eyes again. We all couldn't stop laughing. 2 minutes later, our professor's door swung open and the kid came in. His face was red with rage. "Hey, fix that car right now!"
Where are your manners, young man? Didn't you learn to knock before coming in?
"Shut up! You want to talk about manners? What about dismantling other people's cars, huh?"
Dismantling? I don't know what you're talking about.
"Don't play dumb, old man! I know it was you guys that did that to my car!"
I have no idea what you're talking about. You guys, did you do something to this young man's car?
All of the seniors were in the professor's office at that time, so everyone involved was there, but we all just played dumb. "Huh? I don't know what he's talking about." "Screw you! I know it was you guys!" The kid didn't seem like he was going to calm down anytime soon.
Well, this is the Department of Mechanical Engineering, so I did fear something like this would happen.
The kid just kept getting angrier.
Can someone get me a phone?
So I brought him mine, and my professor started making a phone call.
Oh, hello, Professor Johnson. It seems like one of your students is here.
My professor proceeded to explain the situation to him. Professor Johnson was the president of the kids department. The kid went pale as my professor hung up the phone.
Professor Johnson would like to speak with you and hear the details of your story. Go now. I'll have my students fix your car while you're there, but I expect a written apology on my desk by tomorrow. And listen very carefully. The next time you break school rules, you will feel my wrath.
After being scolded by my professor, the kid looked defeated and walked out of the office. We all returned to the parking lot after that and put his car back together.
A lot of hands-on experience today, eh?
As we were finishing up on the car, someone said,
Even if we fix it up for him, knowing him, he'll probably just park in another faculty parking lot. Yeah, maybe. Maybe he'll cross the biotech department next and get his car melted.
I'm sure they wouldn't go that far. But still, that's a pretty scary thought. Scary old man.
This is a story about an old cheapskate hag that I encountered after a fireworks show. The other day I went to a fireworks show out of town. My son, Jack, had just been accepted to the middle school that he studied for, and I wanted to celebrate for him. The middle school is a prestigious school, with an affiliated high school and college as well. So it was very popular and hard to get into. Jack would come home from elementary school and go straight to cram school, where he studied every day for 3 hours. We weren't a rich family, but we knew how hard he had to work to get in, so we were planning on this trip whether he got it or not, to praise him for all of his effort he put in. I dug into our savings and reserved the best seats to view the fireworks. It came with a buffet and an excellent view right up close.
Wow, this is awesome! I'd take those exams tests a million more times if I get to do this every time.
But starting the next day, a chain of strange events started happening. We always made sure to separate our trash properly, but for some reason, there were a bunch of bottles and cans in our trash, and the garbage men wouldn't take it for us. Then there was a bunch of trash scattered across the front of our house, and our mail was ripped and tossed on the ground outside. Some neighbors even brought over our torn apart mail that the wind carried near their houses. There was a time when our son's bicycle that was parked in our garage was punctured, and the vegetables were stolen from our garden in our backyard. Each event may have been minor, but it was distressing every time. Things were getting out of hand, so we decided to put up security cameras, and we spoke to the chairman of the Neighborhood Community Association. Actually, these kinds of things have been happening in various parts of the neighborhood for a while now. I'm sorry that we haven't fully investigated because no one was harmed yet, and we've refrained from making the information public because it would lower the evaluation of the entire neighborhood. But your case is getting quite extreme. The chairman agreed to put security cameras in places near the garage drop-off location as well, and we decided to wait and see what was going on. We found out shortly after that the perpetrator was an old lady in her 90s. She lived in a very old house. It was one of those creepy houses that the kids in the neighborhood would call a haunted house. We weren't that rich either, but I used to always feel bad for her because it was obvious that she wasn't doing too well from her house and the way she dressed. She didn't notice the security cameras at all. And we saw her bringing cans and bottles and putting them in our trash, and plugging her nose as she carried rotten trash over to our house and spread it across the front yard. She would bring pliers to reach into our locked mailbox to pull out our mail, which she tore to pieces and threw on the ground. Jack's bike was being messed with in the middle of the night, so the security cameras didn't get a good shot of her doing it. But we did catch her breaking into our garage with an ice pick in her hand, which was scary to see. She was in our garden often and would fill her bag up with stolen vegetables and walk off. Finally, I had the chairman join me to confront her at her house. When we spoke to her, we were both shocked at how out of touch with reality this old hag was. We moved into this part of town when my son was 2 years old. He was a very nice young boy and loved by our neighbors. On the other hand, this lady had moved into town all alone about 10 years ago and was always nagging at our neighbors, so everyone avoided her. She has continued to be alone thereafter. At first, everyone including ourselves felt bad that she was alone and used to greet her, but after this one time that she yelled at us for no good reason, we started avoiding her. Our boy was so empathetic, though.
It's not her fault. That's just what happens when you get old. I know she'll open up to us, but we have to be nice to her first.
He would help take out the old lady's trash when she would complain about her back as well. So what happened then? Well, Jack was helping the old lady carry her groceries in and told her all about it, and she got jealous.
I'm sitting here all alone, and you guys are out enjoying family vacations? We were so poor. I could only enter my son into a crappy public high school. But you guys are sending your kid to a private school with an affiliated high school and college? I love fireworks and good food. I can't believe you didn't invite me. You guys have so many vegetables growing in your backyard. It can't hurt to share with a poor old lady like me.
I was speechless because her excuses and reasons were so left field. I was thinking about what to say for a while, but the chairman spoke first. If you ever do anything like this ever again, I'll sue you for property damage, trespassing, theft, and obstruction of correspondence. You might be kicked out of this district as well, so you better stop now. He made her promise not to do anything like this ever again. I agreed to keep the police out of it if she paid for the damages done, and she took my offer. Early the next day, the old lady's son and his wife came with her grandson, so I let them in. The wife was a lady in her 40s and very elegant, and the old hag's son was such a gentleman. I couldn't believe that he shared the woman's genes. I'm sorry for all the trouble that my mother has caused you. He bowed down deeply and handed me a gift with snacks along with an employee. This isn't much, but please, accept this. What's this? It may not be enough to cover everything, but I would like to compensate you for any damages that my mother caused. Once again, they all bowed down deeply. Even their high school son. Don't worry about it. I've already been compensated by your mother. I can't accept this. I gave the husband the envelope back, and they all seemed very sorry as they bowed down deeply yet again. I noticed that their son was wearing the uniform of one of the best public high schools in town. Wow, that's amazing! I can't believe you made it into that high school. My father is a graduate from this school, so I've been studying to get in my entire life. I aspire to be like my father, sir. That's weird. The old lady said her son went to a crappy public high school. Oh, by the way, I heard my grandmother was talking badly about my father's education. Is that true? I told him exactly what I was told, and the husband seemed disappointed. Oh, did she really say that? My mother has always been famous for being a cheapskate since I was a child. She always told me that she would never pay for me to go to a private school or college, so I studied really hard to get into that high school. After entering high school, I got a job and saved up money to go to college. But she made me give it to her, and she used most of it up. So I left the house and started living alone, and I got a college education online. I cut ties with her once around then. But I got back in touch when I got married because she seemed to have settled down a little bit. But after a while, it was the same thing all over again. She started nagging at my wife about money, so we decided to keep our distance from her. After everything that just happened, though, I don't feel comfortable letting her roam freely, so I promised to take her back in soon. After listening to her son's side of the story, I finally understood why she was all alone at her age. I didn't have any sympathy for her, though. The old lady ended up moving out of her district by her son. It didn't take long to find out that most of our minor cases of harassment in our town was caused by that lady.
That's what you all get for being so mean to me.
That was her reason. Finally, after 10 years, our town was peaceful again. Oh, by the way, that old lady wasn't poor at all. As a matter of fact, she'd been such a cheapskate all her life, she probably has more saved up than we do. At least, that's what her son told us. Well, I guess the devil's children have the devil's luck.
I was about to give birth in a couple months, so I was discussing with my husband, Jack, about how I was thinking about going back to my hometown and have my parents help me out. My hometown was pretty far, so my husband tried talking me out of it.
Just have my mom help you out with the baby. It shouldn't be a problem. I mean, she raised me too. I turned out okay, didn't I?
Yeah, but I'd feel bad burdening your mother like that.
Don't worry about it. My mom loves babies. We'll be fine. Plus, your hometown is so far away. It'll be a waste of money to go back and forth. And remember, you might not be blood related, but my mother is your mother now too. She'll be sad if you go back home to deliver our baby.
I just couldn't convince him otherwise. I was nervous because it was my first time giving birth, and I would have preferred to stay with my own parents and be carefree with as little stress as possible for the whole process. But I could see where my husband came from as well. So even though I was a little annoyed with him not understanding my feelings, I ended up giving in to his proposal. As the big day neared, my mother-in-law, Rose, stopped by every day to help around the house and go grocery shopping for me. It was a big help, but at the same time, I felt bad for having her help out so much. Finally, the day came. As I was struggling with the pain, my husband was calling all of his relatives.
Our baby is on her way!
He literally called every single relative he had, and I successfully gave birth to our daughter.
She's so adorable. Such a cute little girl.
Jack seemed overwhelmed with joy. Jack came from a bloodline with only men, all the way to his second cousins. When I got pregnant and we found out that she was a girl, he was super excited about it.
Part of the reason why I chose you is because you come from a family of women, Jill. My mother's gonna be so excited.
He even joked like that with me. And although it almost seemed like he wasn't joking, I was just happy that he would love our baby wholeheartedly. But starting the very next day after I gave birth, all kinds of people that I hadn't even met before came to visit to see our baby. They were all excited for us. The first girl in our family! Hooray! Everyone came and stayed for a while as they held our baby. It was like some sort of super event. People just kept visiting, and I had no time to relax or spend alone. I was concerned that things would continue to be hectic as I was finally discharged from the hospital. When I finally got home, I dropped my bags in awe. We had prepared a room for our child, but it had become Rose's room all of a sudden. I immediately asked Jack what the deal was. Hey, what's going on here? Why is that room filled with Rose's stuff? Jack didn't even flinch.
Well, my mom wants to spend time with her granddaughter, so she'll be living with us for a while. Our baby won't need her own room for a while, so it won't be a problem.
No. Listen, I'm fine with her visiting, but I can't live with her. I tried to be as straightforward as possible.
Don't worry, she's pretty relaxed.
That's not what I mean.
You guys get along great. It shouldn't be a problem, right? Or are you trying to take away the one thing that my mom has been looking forward to?
He completely ignored my feelings and refused to compromise. He was right about Rose. She is a very nice lady. She helps out a lot and never complains, and we do get along fine. But that's not the point. This may sound selfish, but I just wanted 3 days alone. No matter how well we got along, the small things irritated me. I'm not proud of it, but that's just how I am. I explained this to Jack, and he told Rose, her husband, and all the other relatives about it, and Rose left the house. The next morning, my phone rang. Hello?
Jill, you're so selfish!
How could you kick Rose out of your house? That's so mean! All my relatives started calling and yelling at me about how terrible I was. I'm sorry. I must have apologized to 1 million people. I complained about all the phone calls to Jack.
Well, what did you expect? My mom thinks of you like her own daughter, and she loves our baby so much, but you kicked her out. You may be exhausted from delivery and all, but you took it too far.
He made it sound like I was crazy, and I was reaching my limit. I couldn't stop crying. Maybe I should just disappear with this baby. All kinds of bad thoughts were racing through my head, but I didn't want to feel this way any longer. So I built up the courage and called Rose, prepared to have a divorce if I had to. I told her everything I was feeling, and to my surprise, Rose just listened kindly to what I had to say. After I was finished talking, she spoke to me gently. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry. It must have been hard for you, but it's different than what I heard. Will you hear me out? I was crying and confused. Jack told me that you didn't get along with your parents, and you didn't want to go back home to give birth, and asked me to come look after you. That's right. My own husband had been feeding my mother-in-law a false narrative. He told me that it was going to be hard for you to do the housework and look after the baby at the same time. So he wanted me to come live with you guys and help out. I found out that Rose only came over because she just wanted to help. Jack told me and our relatives that you were selfish and spoiled. So everyone was just concerned. But after listening to you, I see now that we all had the wrong impression. I'm so sorry, Jill. I could hear Rose crying on the other side as she apologized to me. After that, Rose explained everything to the relatives on my behalf, and I had her come over to the house. When Jack got home, he was surprised to see his mother there. Rose scolded Jack pretty badly.
Well, it would have been hard for you to visit if she'd given birth so far away.
Okay. Well, why did you ask me to live with you then?
I thought you would like it if you had a chance to spend more time with your granddaughter.
And why did you call all of our relatives over?
Well, you know how no one has girls. I just wanted to show our girl off.
All of his excuses were so immature. I didn't even feel like arguing back. You're an idiot! A child is not a toy. And Jill came all the way over here to marry you. The least you could do is take good care of her. Rose yelled at Jack for a while after that. Then she turned to me and said, I'm sorry he's such an idiot. If you have any problems with him, you can talk to me from now on, okay? After saying that, Rose went back home.
I'm sorry. I was the one being selfish. I only thought about myself and never considered how you or the baby felt. I'm so sorry, Jill. I promise to be a good husband and a good father from now on. I'll try my best. So please, forgive me.
After that, just as he promised, Jack started helping out with the housework and taking care of the baby a lot more. And finally, I got my peace of mind back. I feel bad for treating Rose like that back then, even though I didn't fully understand the situation. All I have is gratitude for her now.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.